Previously on Manhattan Wood Project.
A few weeks prior, I had been asked to make something special. Something unique. The president of the local chapter of Hadassah, a women's organization that raises money for things like medical research, asked me to make something special for a silent auction. Since a large number of Hadassah members are Jewish, I figured I should probably use a symbol that was easily recognized.
What?
I built this beautiful piece of art from maple and walnut. Keep watching to see how I built it.
Well, what should I make today? Manhattan Wood Project. That looks great!
I started by cutting out 12 legs. That way I could either make 2 clocks or seriously mess one up and learn from it and make one nice clock. I had to decide whether I was going to simulate doing half laps or actually do real half laps. I knew it was going to be tricky and the geometry was going to be a mess, but I decided to go with real half laps. I'm glad that I cut 12 legs because I messed up the first 6 by routing that little dado in it just a little bit too wide. It would have shown too much of a gap, and gas can be filled, but I wanted to make this nice and perfect. If you look at the router table, there's a piece of wood clamped at an angle. I actually have some marks on that, and I was using that as kind of a calibration gauge so that I could make consistent cuts on all 6 pieces at once. I would just make one cut on a piece, flip it over, do the same cut on the other side, and then do the same thing to all 5 other pieces. And then I would just tweak little by little, making sure that I didn't get a nice gap anywhere. Overall, it took me about 15 to 20 hours to make this clock, not including dry times. At least a quarter, if not a third of the time, was spent testing, setting up the router, and actually routing out the half laps in the arms. It took so long because at the end I was just taking small cuts off the inside and outside of each little half lap, maybe trying to take off 5 or 10 thousandths of an inch at a time. Glue-up was fun, trying to get 6 pieces of wood wedged together using pre-tight half laps. I had to use a little persuasion to get everything to fit. It was like a freaking maple puzzle, but eventually it worked. I got some glue in each joint, some glue in each half lap, and you can see that I thought ahead and actually glued on some triangles on the outside of each of the legs. I did that so that I would have something to clamp onto, and so that when I took it off, all I'd have to do is sand off a little bit of paper. Any little gaps that I had left, I could easily fill with some maple sawdust and glue. It was easy to remove that triangle. I just had to use a chisel, and sometimes a little bit of force, sometimes not. But that system worked like a champ. I highly recommend it because the paper sanded right off and you couldn't even tell where I'd been able to clamp it. I wasn't sure what kind of wood I was actually putting in the middle. All I knew is that it was dark and it was kind of purple when it was freshly cut. It was a piece I got from a good friend. I cut it roughly to size on the radial arm saw and the band saw, and then I had to remove about ½ an inch of width. Now this piece was about 1/4 of an inch too tall to go all the way through the bandsaw. I ended up taking off as much as I could using the bandsaw, and then used a handsaw to take off the rest. It turns out that none of my handsaws really work very well for cutting walnut like this. It took about 10 minutes for me to get through that center 2-inch circle or so. After I got that cut, I glued it into place, made sure it was aligned with the mallet, and then it was time to get ready to put the clock mechanism in. I drilled a hole in the exact center for the clock mechanism itself, and then in the back I used a Forstner bit and a chisel and chiseled out a little clock compartment. That way the clock wouldn't necessarily sit an inch from the wall, maybe ½ an inch. When everything was glued up and sanded, I gave it 3 coats of Danish oil. Turned out very nice, but I kind of wish that I had done my logo burning before putting the Danish oil on instead of after. This really stunk, but it still worked well. I also drilled a small hole just underneath where the clock mechanism would go. I channeled my Peter Brown and I epoxied a 2014 penny into that clock. After the Danish oil was fully dried, I applied 3 coats of high gloss lacquer. Overall, this clock is 18 inches tall, the wood itself is 3/4 thick, and it weighs almost 3 pounds. I ordered a custom clock mechanism and the actual clock arms from clockit.com. I really like the way the oil brings out the deep color of the walnut and any curl that's in the maple, and I really like the way the high gloss lacquer makes it, well, glossy. I like that look. So I said that this clock was going to be donated to a silent auction, and it was. I asked the chapter president to put my name down with a bid of $200, and apparently I won my own clock. So I'm paying $200 to Hadassah, the Los Alamos chapter, for this beautiful handmade walnut maple clock. And the best part is, Hanukkah starts in a couple days. My wife already knows that we have it, but it's going to be a great Hanukkah gift. Honey, I love you. Happy Hanukkah. This is project number 24. Number 25 is something that I'm very excited about, just basically for me. It's going to be a little me project. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or a like. Share it with all your friends, and you can even subscribe if you haven't done so. You can click right there on my logo right now, or you can click down below on the little subscribe button. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great holiday season, whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Festivus, whatever you celebrate, happy that to you. And I'll see you on number 25.